Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. This is Wednesday. Today's Wednesday. And on Wednesdays, I always do my Q&A videos where you get to ask me whatever questions you want and I answer them. And this video today is actually a very special one because I'm only really focusing on one question. And it was asked to me by Richard Luciano. And he asked, Homage covers like X-Men Annual number 10, which is this book. I'm going to show you it. X-Men Annual number 10 are great. Do you have a favorite if it is not counting its inspiration, assuming Giant Size, it's Giant Size X-Men number 1, or do you have any other throwback ever? Can you recall anything paying homage to a piece created before Action Comics number 1? So this one is an homage to Giant Size X-Men, so kind of cool. And it's kind of a great comic in general. This was given to me by Falco, a friend of mine. And it's just a really great homage to Giant Size X-Men. Now, what I really want to talk about in this video is give you a little history about homage covers. The very first homage cover was done in Action Comics number 8. And it was an homage to N.C. Wyeth's Last of the Mohicans. Now it's a very famous painting. Basically, it's like on a cliff or something, and these two guys are fighting. One of them is a Mohawk, and it's sort of like that battle. I think it's that scene was even shown in the movie Last of the Mohicans, where it's like that kind of classic battle on a very precarious situation. It is like a really phenomenal painting. And Action Comics number 8 really just swiped it and made that their cover. And what people don't realize is Action Comics, when it first got started, Action Comics number 1, most famous comic book in comic history, probably, because it is the first appearance of Superman. But it didn't mean that they were really confident with that character. They didn't know if Superman was going to be this character that was going to change everything and become this major player. It wasn't until later that Superman became like a staple on the cover. So a lot of the early Action Comics didn't feature Superman on the cover. And I'm going to show you actually an homage to Action Comics number 1. I figure, hey, it's one of those things that people ask. I actually didn't spend as much as it says on this, but I got this a little cheaper. But this is kind of an expensive one. It's like a magazine size, but this is an homage to Action Comics number 1 with the classic, him lifting up the car, and it's like that typical thing. This is like, I think that's Gorilla Gond, and Mr. Freeze and all those ones. So just a great homage. It's one of those things with homage covers. There's generally what they'll do is they'll either homage pieces of cultural history, like Action Comics did with the painting Last of the Mohicans, but really what we think of generally with homage covers is homages to other comics. And the very first one that did that was actually in Detective Comics. It happened much later, where they homaged, the artist actually kind of almost like rethought about how they wanted to do their artwork. And so there was one that was earlier, and then there was one that was later. I forgot the issue number, but it's a scene where the guy's like kind of jumping off a bridge, and then there's this moving car underneath. And yeah, that's what it is. It's not necessarily, but it's the same cover as a previous earlier cover, just slightly done differently. I think the artist kind of had wanted to do it a little differently. But then that led to other artists, and it was very common for artists to kind of steal each other's ideas. Like even Detective 27, it's one of those things where that is it's a bit of a theft of other artists' work, where they basically just tweaked it a little bit and made it more Batman-y. So it's one of those things where artists kind of took like liberties with other artists' work. And the homage, though, really was more of a way of not just stealing some other artist's work, but paying tribute to that artwork. And I'll give you a good example of a great homage cover that I love. It's this one. This is like The Simpsons, where, you know, it's truly what we think of as an homage, where you have, the characters kind of laid out like Fantastic Four. It's just like Fantastic Four #1, but instead of like the Sue Storm and all these, the Fantastic Four characters, it's Homer Simpson and his family. So this is what we generally think of as an homage, where it's the same concept, but it is not the same exact swipe. Now I'm going to give you an example of where it's almost the exact same swipe, and the early homages often did that, where it was just like, it almost looks like a reprint of a previous cover. My earliest homage cover, and I collect homage covers, so I have a lot of them, was a pure cover swipe. And it's this one, Atomic Comics #1. Now this is an homage that's from 1946, and it's homaging Detective Comics #8. So it's kind of a cool homage. It's a very early homage, but it's an homage where they are really just almost doing a cover swipe and changing the title, obviously, to Atomic Comics instead of Detective Comics. So that's an example of an early homage. Now, as I was saying, homages not only are done to comics, but often they're done to things that are popular within pop culture. So a lot of the homages that I have in my collection are not homages to other comics, but they're homages to kind of pop culture things. And a good example of that is my Gen 13. This is an homage to a Pulp Fiction. And it's just a really great thing where a lot of the time when they do homage covers, they try to pay not just a pure cover swipe kind of situation, but they try to put their character into that story. Okay, so for example, Pulp Fiction, this is what the movie poster kind of looked like for Pulp Fiction. But instead, they changed key elements very subtly to make it Gen 13 more themed. So you got the Gen 13 comic down below, and you got the Gen 13 character there. So it's a really great example of how artists kind of play with these homages to kind of showcase their love of the original, but also their own characters. So I want to show you something really kind of fun. Another kind of example of this is a series that I really like, and they do, like, I'm actually going to do an unboxing. I might even air it later today, where I show all my homage pickups that I just did. Like, I literally picked up 60 some odd homages. It was just like this massive homage unboxing, I guess. And maybe I'll show it either later or I'll schedule it later in the week. I'm not sure when I'm going to show it, but it's a great unboxing. But one of the books that was in it, and this is almost like a preview, is this one. It's Crossed 100. And this is a great homage to a very major, another pop culture reference, which is Star Wars. Now, Crossed is not at all like Star Wars, but they did a bunch of these homage covers. And that's really what my unboxing is going to be. It's going to be a bunch of homage covers. But this is a really fun one where you got Leia and Luke and C-3PO. But they all are infected by this crossed virus. So it's kind of interesting. So I really like homage covers. I think, you know, there's a certain humor and subtlety that I enjoy about homage covers. And when I think of homage covers, I think of not just, you know, like mediocre artists, you know, not having creativity or anything like that. I think of actually some of the best artists actually do homages. And I'm going to show you an example of homage that I really love. And this is done by Adam Hughes. This is Phantom Lady, #1, which is an homage to Phantom Lady, the original Golden Age book from, which was number 17. Really, a book that I'm chasing. Been chasing this book, and it's just always out of my price range. But this is a really great homage. Classic cover. Matt Baker originally did the art for it. And it just shows you that when an artist is a very talented artist, it's not a lack of creativity. It's that they want to put their own stamp on something that is iconic as an image. And this is a good example with Adam Hughes. Another good example is from another artist that I really, really love. Sadly, he died too young. It was Dave Stevens. And this is Airboy. I believe number 4 or 5. Number 5. It's an homage to the original first appearance of Valkyrie, which is the character right there, who made their first appearance in Air Fighters #2. But this is a really great homage, and it's the difference with this homage compared to some of the other homages that I've shown is instead of being a case where they kind of tweak it with a different character and adding different elements to kind of play tongue-in-cheek with the homage, this is an homage where it's really him redoing the original cover and putting his own stamp on it. And that's what I was trying to get at with these last couple examples I'm showing you, is they're putting it, they're creating a classic cover, but with their own unique style. I think this is one of Dave Stevens' most famous covers, actually. So that's Airboy #5. Now, one of the ones that I just have collected the most, and I'm going to show a bunch. I'm not going to show them all because I have a ton of homages to this one cover, is a lot of the time there are books that are kind of seen as pinnacle books. I actually did a video about this very particular book. This is Crime Suspense Stories #22, which I believe kind of was the book that ended the Golden Age. It was the book that was the most pinnacle, like really was the last straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing, and led to the Comic Code Authority and led to really the whole change of comics in general. And a lot of artists, I think, agree with me on that. And so it's one of the most commonly homaged covers, maybe after Action Comics #1. And I'm going to show you a few because they're pretty fun. So it's, just so you know, Crime Suspense Stories is that classic cover where you see the decapitated head being held up and then the bloody axe in the other hand. Well, here are some homage covers for it. So this is Miss Mask. And it's like, you know, you got Crime Suspense Stories, and, you know, it's like you got the severed head and the axe. And the interesting thing about the original Crime Suspense Stories 22 is the blood was done in black because they thought it was too gory if they made it red. So they even have that classic black blood on this homage. And another good example, and this one's a very popular one, is Wolverine did it. And again, you got the Wolverine and he's got the severed head of Sabretooth, and his claws have not the black, not the red blood, but the black blood. And again, it's these fine details where they really understand the original, the original thing that they're homaging. It's just a really great homage thing. And a lot of these ones, they'll have, I'll show you on this one, where they have the letter boxes and the style of the original comic really well done. Now this one, they used red blood, but this is a snifter of terror. And it's supposed to be like Edgar Allan Poe. So you got the raven sitting on the axe, and you got Edgar Allan Poe's head, severed head. But you'll see, it's kind of a cool comic. And even Archie got into the act. Well, this is kind of like an Archie-like thing. This is Die Kitty Die, Cat House of Horror. And it's like another great homage cover. So, again, the axe has the black on it. And Stray Dogs did a really great homage to it. Now, they don't have the severed head, which is interesting, and they have the cute little puppy. And this is their trade paperback. And it just has the bloody axe and the woman. This one actually, in a weird way, I think is one of the better ones, because of the fact that if you're a fan of Stray Dogs, this one really tells the story quite well of what happens in Stray Dogs. So I thought that was kind of appropriate. I really kind of like that, because generally I don't like it when the cover doesn't reflect the contents of the story, but this one kind of does, and I think it's really interesting. So this is Stray Dog Stories, and I like the fact that they kind of play a little bit tongue-in-cheek with the name, and I think it's a really great cover. So that's one of my favorite, actually. So I've shown you some. I want to show a good example of another. As I said, a lot of the things that they homage are pop cultural references. And a great example of that is, there's a very classic movie from I believe it's from the 50s or 60s. It's in that time period. It's called Robbie the Robot. And it's like this kind of like outer space looking robot-y guy. And he has like the damsel in his arms, and he's kind of carrying her off. And it's a very famous poster. Katie Keane did a really great homage to it. I just really like it. So that's Katie Keane, and she's being lifted up by Robbie the Robot kind of style robot. And I think it's a really great cover. Really great homage. Okay, now I wanted to show you one more, or maybe a couple more homages. One that I want to show is, this is another one that I've seen homaged so many times. And it's Amazing Spider-Man 300. And then it's been homaged by so many different artists. But this one I think is interesting. It's an homage to himself. So this is Spawn, and this is the thank you edition. It's actually quite a rare book. And it's Todd McFarlane, who actually did Amazing Spider-Man 300's cover, and he's homaging himself. So this is his Spawn version of that cover. So I think it's always interesting where artists can sometimes homage themselves. I think that's just kind of fun. And I wanted to show you one more really great artist that I love that did a really awesome homage. This is probably my favorite homage. So that was the original question. What's your favorite homage cover? Well, it's probably this one. And this is Out of This World. I love this cover. It's just very sexy, first of all. It's a girl in bondage. She should be wearing red, but I'll let it slide. But you got the classic thing with the alien coming in, the girl in bondage. And this is Out of This World, and it's a Bruce Timm cover. Bruce Timm is a really great artist. Sorry that it's a low grade. It's not the highest grade. It's a very pricey book, actually, considering it's a relatively new book. But it's just a really great homage. Bruce Timm didn't do any of the internal art, and it has nothing to do with this stuff. But it's just a really great cover. I really love this cover. So this is Out of This World #1, and it's a Bruce Timm cover. And I'll show you what that homage, show you how to kind of compare. A little bit different, right? So the woman is like in a space kind of suit, and you got the alien coming in through the portal. But very different suit, style altogether. So Bruce Timm kind of, I think, I like Bruce Timm's cover better than this original one. But this is from another famous artist, Stranko, and it is also considered, or Steve Ditko, sorry, Stranko, Steve Ditko. And this is Space Adventures number 12. Yeah, Space Adventures number 12. Really great cover. So those are some of my Homage covers, and I hope you enjoyed this special look at Homage covers. And if you want to ask me your question, please leave it in the comments below, and I will answer it. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.